Hello, my name is Chance Myers, and today I'll be doing my presentation on antitrust laws. So just to start, just what are antitrust laws? Antitrust laws are laws that protect consumers from being deprived of the benefits of competition in the very basic form. Antitrust laws prevent competitors from hiding or censoring other competitors' products that may be priced or just might be better quality in general. And so some examples of antitrust laws are the Sherman Antitrust Act. This was the first antitrust act that was ever created in the U.S., and it was passed in 1890. And this was passed based on Congress's power to regulate interstate commerce. The Sherman Antitrust Act allowed government to institute proceedings against trusts to disband them. So a trust is an arrangement of stockholders from multiple companies that transfer their shares to one group of trustees. And this would give each of those stockholders that would transfer their shares, it would give each of them a certificate with a specific percentage of the earnings from the companies that they had put their shares into. Trust ended up destroying competition, and just one example of that is the Standard Oil Trust of 1882. So the next antitrust law we have is the Clayton Act. This one was passed in 1914, and it was created to limit the power of trust and monopolies, and it was just kind of a strengthened version of the Sherman Antitrust Act. And then we have the Federal Trade Commission Act, which created the FTC, which was passed in 1915. It was created to regulate the Sherman Antitrust Act and the Clayton Act, also created to ensure that consumers were receiving fair competition. It took on the duties of what was previously known as the Federal Bureau of Corporations. The three goals of the FTC are to protect consumers, maintain competition, and advance performance. And the FTC also provides protections from companies using deceptive practices such as misleading consumers. If big corporations do not abide by these guidelines that these three acts set in place for businesses, we would not have a consumer-friendly market. Competitors would be silenced by big corporations, and small businesses would struggle to become successful. So here's some outcomes of antitrust law cases. It's just two of them. It's just Google antitrust cases and a Facebook investigation. And so to start with Google, Google was found guilty in an EU case in 2017. They were fined 2.4 billion euros. And they were found guilty of search engine results being censored. So what Google is doing is they had pushed their own promotions to the front pages of the Google searches when a user would search something, and what was truly being searched the most and what link was being used the most had been pushed to the back pages. And so the EU investigated this, and when they found that, they had believed that they had broken their antitrust laws and fined them 2.4 billion euros. And then they were found guilty again in the EU in early 2019, and this time they were fined 1.49 billion euros. And this time they were found guilty for they had created contracts that prohibited rivals from placing their ads on websites that were partnered with Google. So it would not allow Yahoo to sell ad space in Google's search result pages. And then Google was also investigated in the US for antitrust laws for its search results, but the US found that they had not violated those laws. And then the Facebook investigations, Facebook gave a company called Cambridge Analytica access to data of roughly 87 million Facebook users. And after some investigating, they noticed that this was just one of many misconducts that Facebook had done against antitrust laws. And so the company, some other examples are the company collected data from other apps that did not have a Facebook account connected to it so that they could create ads for specific users. So they're going through back doors of these apps to gather search results and search information that these users were looking for so they could target ads on Facebook directed towards these users. And then they also gave device makers access to all of their users' data, and no outcome has come of this investigation as it is still ongoing at this current day. And so some pros and cons of antitrust laws. Some pros are it eliminates price fixing by monopolies and cartels, that is. It attempts to lead a consumer protected market, meaning that consumers will receive the full benefits of its competition of these benefits, and promotes free competition for businesses. And then some cons are that it can sometimes limit a business's success. Because of the guidelines that they are required to follow, the antitrust laws can sometimes prevent further success. And then penalties can also be very severe for antitrust laws. Um, in the U.S., some penalties include up to $100 million fine for a corporation or $1 million fine for an individual with possibility of up to 10 years in prison. And so my conclusions, as a legal advisor, I'd recommend that you do not test the legal boundaries when it comes to antitrust laws. Although the two companies I presented to you have not received legal punishment in the United States, Google has been fined with very large sums of money in the EU and can possibly face trouble here in the US in the next few years, as can Facebook. And I do not believe that the risk is worth the benefits that these companies are receiving from violating these antitrust laws and having to pay these large fines. And lastly, follow all guidelines according to the law. All companies should follow the antitrust guidelines. As seen previously, antitrust laws are there to protect the consumer and to protect competition. If businesses did not have to follow these guidelines, we would see many more monopolies in many different industries. If we had monopolies across a majority of industries, businesses would be able to charge the prices they choose because they would have no competition that is selling for less. Antitrust laws aim to end price fixing by these monopolies, and that is why I believe all companies should have to abide by the antitrust laws. I do not believe that the cons of antitrust laws outweigh the pros of them. And then these are my sources. Thank you. Have a great day.